Today's Evening First Alert Weather Show is brought to you by Bresky Siding.
And good Tuesday evening, Mid-Michigan. Chief Meteorologist Chris Easlick with your Tuesday night weather chat. Our nightly segments that we do here on our streaming desk to talk about the weather and anything else that is exciting in the world that you want to talk about. It's not politics. We don't want to talk about politics, but mostly about the weather. We do have winter weather advisories in place for tomorrow. It does seem like we've got most of our counties under those winter weather advisories. They go into effect later tonight and last roughly through about the lunch hour or so. And I wouldn't be surprised if some of these end before 1 o'clock comes around, but usually they're typically a longer duration, and then we kind of trim from there. And it seems like a scenario tomorrow where I think some of those could be done a little bit sooner. But the primary concern with the winter weather advisories this time around is the fact that we are going to get some snow for the morning commute. It's not necessarily a ton of snow, but it is an amount of snow that could come down tomorrow morning that could really slow things down a little bit in certain areas. And of course, we never really like to see that snow right when everybody's trying to get back to work and back to school in the morning, or for those not going to work in school, for those who have appointments and things like that. So I'm going to get right to it for tonight. We're not really anticipating anything to arrive here in the near term. And when I say near term, I'm talking within the next couple of hours. If I go over to your sky tracker, it really doesn't show all that much at the moment. We've had some scattered snow showers on the west side of the state, but what appears to be forming is this area of snow that's a little bit closer to the Wisconsin-Illinois line. And what that's going to do is move in our direction as we go through tonight and tomorrow. And likely seeing the most widespread snow, I would say, from probably the early morning through, I would say, about mid to late morning, and then kind of tapers off after that. But we'll have the hour-by-hour forecast here coming up in just a second. So here's how that looks. If we start the clock, let's just go a little bit slower. Kind of spoiler alert there. But if we go from 11 o'clock through, probably about 2, you start to see some evidence along 127. Some of those areas might see the snow a little bit sooner, but I think you're really going to start to see it closer to about 3 and 4 o'clock. I think that's when it starts to become a little bit more established in those areas right along 127 and 69. And then as we go further into the morning, this is about 5:30, an hour later, starting to become more widespread at that point, even more so by 7. And I think this is kind of where the peak happens between about 7 and 8. And then you'll start to see more gaps eventually start to come into the main snow shield there. And then it starts slowing down around lunchtime and then just tapers off to more of a scattered coverage of snow during the second half of the day. I don't necessarily think we're done with snow after the morning, but there's a lot more gaps in the coverage for the afternoon. We'll likely keep the snow going into the evening, and then it just kind of fades away the further into Wednesday night we go. And then we start to see more develop on Thursday with a little bit more lake effect from time to time. So it's not a ton. I'll get over to our snowfall map here. It's about 1 to 3 inches of snow for most of the region. The areas that are a little bit further to the south, I want to make clear that even in this area here, I still expect most in that region to pick up about 1 to 3. There's just like a small little sign that the chance to get about 3.5 and 4 is not necessarily completely out of the question. So I just wanted to give a little bit more of a top end range there, just so you can know the potential and not to be surprised if somebody again picks up about 3.5 to 4 inches. That's just outside of this range. If you're in our northern counties, I would say this top row of counties, you're in the 1 to 3 zone. I think you're probably closer to 1 to 2. But I just wanted to keep this map simple. We've had some maps that are a little bit more tricky so far this season, and I felt that this one was pretty straightforward, so try to keep it as straightforward as possible. So really the only difference between our southern counties and these areas to the north is I think a few locations in this area have at least the potential to go a little bit higher than 3, so just wanted to highlight that. But a pretty typical advisory level snow. In fact, I think maybe a little bit lower on the advisory end. I think one of the things that probably factored into that decision to go with an advisory was just the fact that it was going to happen during the morning commute. So I think that is what we're currently expecting to be the case for tomorrow. And I think we'll have a chance to get temperatures actually a little bit warmer in the afternoon, because if we play this hour by hour out one more time, is if we go towards 11:30 tonight, we're bottoming out in the teens, but I think it's pretty brief. Even if I fast forward to about 2:30, we really haven't cooled off all that much, and some areas are actually getting warmer. And if you look at these temperatures that we see at 2:30 and you go towards 5, we've actually gotten a little bit warmer. So how's that for some winter irony? We get more snow to come into the region, we actually get warmer. So that's just how cold we've been. Going back into last night and early today, we actually get warmer with snow. It just happens because we've got a southwesterly wind. I'm just kind of kidding around. But we do get warmer through the day. By the afternoon, I think we're pushing about the upper 20s to low 30s, and road treatments are going to be pretty effective at that point. And so I don't think this is going to be something that locks up the afternoon or evening drives. I think we'll have a chance to clear things out pretty well. Doesn't mean we won't have slow spots, back roads, side streets, those types of things. But I don't necessarily think this is something that we're going to be dealing with all day. I don't think what happens during the morning commute tomorrow is necessarily going to reflect what happens by the time the evening comes around because of those temperatures helping us out. Road crews, I would have to imagine, knowing that this is on the way, are going to be pre-treating a little bit tonight. And I have a feeling that they'll be out pretty frequently tomorrow morning as this is falling. So I think the second half of the day will probably be in better shape. If I show you just our snowfall model here, if I just go through roughly about 7 o'clock, this is one of the reasons that I think we might be able to get through this without seeing a major factor with the alert day or things like that. Is number one, I think at this point in January, we've got January 20th here, we're going into the last third of the month. I think a 1 to 3 inch type snowfall and temperatures that are pretty chilly in the morning, I think that's pretty standard at this point. And I think knowing that snow could come tomorrow morning with temperatures like these, I think you can naturally just expect slippery spots. But this was also a factor, is looking at our models by the time 7 o'clock comes around, and even if we go out a little bit farther to 8, we're still seeing a lot of areas that have only picked up maybe around an inch of snow, and some areas even a little bit less than that. And so I think we'll have the chance to have just kind of a standard winter drive in the morning. So I think you need to be careful, but I also want you to have that perspective that this isn't going to be one of those events where we have 6 inches on the ground by the time you wake up. I think it's mostly just I think an advisory is appropriate. I think this could be a nuisance on your morning drive. I think this is something where it is going to take you a little extra time in certain locations to get where you need to go tomorrow. But there's not a winter storm warning or anything like that. So I think, if you're careful, we'll get through this one without much issue at all, which, again, last third of January, I would hope so by now. But, this is kind of where we're at, where we get people going too fast regardless, and we run into problems. So I would just say be careful tomorrow. Here's a look at some of the wind gusts as this falls. 7 o'clock, it's really not too bad. We've got some gusts between about 25 and 30 miles per hour. 9 o'clock, pretty much the same. I would say 25 to 30 looks to be more of a top end. And even as far out as lunchtime, it seems like we're about 20 to 30 miles per hour as well. So the winds are not overly strong. This isn't going to be a scenario that repeats Monday as far as the wind. And in fact, our temperatures get warmer tomorrow, so will our wind chills. And so we're not going to be quite as cold on Wednesday as we were today. But more on those wind chills here in a second. So I'll just pull up the snowfall map again, just so this could sit here. Again, I think most areas are between about 1 and 3 inches of snow. I think the 4-inch range, or the top end of that range that's shaded in blue, I think those totals near 4, at least the way it sits right now, I think those are a little bit more of the exception rather than the rule. I just think there's a little bit more potential with any northward shift that some of those higher totals that we expect to be to the south of the TV5 viewing area, if they get nudged northward just a little bit, you could find some areas like that, maybe closer to 3 or 4. So that's pretty much it. I'll take a look at some of the comments here tonight just to kind of see where we're at. Wendy, again, talked about that, but morning travel, is that going to be bad? I would just say it's a standard Michigan winter morning. I think you're going to have slow spots, and it'll probably take you longer than usual. Todd, here in Kalamazoo, 7 to 10 inches. Kalamazoo and the west side of the state definitely getting more than us once again. Paulette, when is it going to warm in the 40s? It's going to be a while. I wouldn't expect 40s through the end of the month. Rivers, nice to see you. Coleman, Christopher, Mount Pleasant, Christina, fire up chips. Linda on as usual. Nice to see some of our frequent flyers on here. Elizabeth, hopefully February is warmer. Yeah, I haven't looked into February yet, but the bar is pretty low. So might not have a really might not have a high jump to clear for February to be a little bit warmer than what we've had. Yep, Richard, fire up chips. Always appreciate that. Braden, anyone see the Northern Lights last night? Got a ton of pictures. Those are on my page if you want to check those out. Good to see Zach, the Chaos Coordinator creator. Zach asks a good question as far as do we expect lake effect. There will be some lake effect in the coming days. I don't think it's going to be a ton. I think what you'll see on Thursday is those typical lake effect days for us are not usually that bad. So I think it's probably one of those days where you get sporadic dustings to maybe an inch or two. But the inch or two totals are usually more localized to where, one town gets hit, the next town over hardly gets anything. I think you'll see that through the end of the week, but I think Wednesday is the best opportunity for more of a uniform snow, if that makes sense. Hannah, do I anticipate any closings tomorrow? I would lean towards no, unless the roads get really bad a lot sooner. I would say tomorrow's a morning that it's really tough in these 1 to 3 inch type scenarios. I would lean no if I had to make a guess. But I think it really is just going to depend on when those superintendents or whoever is responsible for driving the routes tomorrow, if they take a look and see that things are a little bit worse than expected, or even with the light amounts of snow, if we really get some icing and things get dicey pretty quickly. I suppose you never know, but again, I would probably lean towards no. We'll see. I would say check in the morning. And meteorologist Stone Schaefer will always have those traffic maps up. Those start at 4:30 for any of you who need a real-time answer in the morning. Another thing I want to talk about, in addition to the snow, is we do have first alert weather days now for Friday and Saturday. And again, with the alert days, we try not to make those decisions lightly, but it seems like the data has been consistent enough towards Friday and Saturday that not only, I think the wind chills that we had this morning are kind of the floor for Friday and Saturday. And what I mean by that is I think those can be expected, but I think wind chills that are 15 to 25 below, I think those are more likely Friday and Saturday than they were a little bit earlier this week on Tuesday, which of course would be this morning. But in case you're watching this a little bit later, I do think there's higher potential for the wind chills to be closer to about 15 to 25 below later this week. And I think that's not only a Friday thing, but I think that's a Saturday thing too. Now, Friday could be more of an all-day thing. I think Saturday has the potential to kind of see a colder morning and maybe some improvement a little bit more than Friday during the afternoon. I say improvement loosely because I don't think it's big improvement, but I think Friday could be one of those days where it just kind of lasts all day. And the difficult thing about that is once you're starting to get into that 15 to 25 degree below range, and I think we will have the chance for some cold weather advisories to be issued later this week. Once you're kind of consistently in that range is when you start talking about schools. And we don't make those decisions here at the TV station, obviously. But just traditionally speaking, it's once you get down to that 15 to 25 below is when decisions start to get made. And so I would say the reason we're kind of jumping ahead of this is, again, not to scare you, 15 to 25 below is something that I think has happened just about every winter I've been here at TV5 going back 10 years. We get through it just fine. It doesn't mean the end of days, but what we start talking about with temperatures like this is you start getting into that frostbite in less than 30 minutes. And also, you start to get to the point where you need to start checking on, friends or family or just people who might be in more vulnerable situations. Maybe they don't have the best HVAC system in their house. Maybe they've got drafty windows, things like that. you can really get into some tricky situations and stuff like that. You start to get pipes that are bursting. So we just want to bring a little bit more attention to that Friday and Saturday. Those who have animals outside, farms and things like that, we want you to know so you can make preparations. So again, I know it's the big scary red graphic here, but it's really just wanting to bring some awareness towards the end of the week there, just to get your attention a little bit more. And to be honest, with the fast start to winter that we've had with school closings that we had back in November, and we've had in some districts a really rough start post-holiday break, you might have a lot of parents who are scrambling with PTO at this point. There are some districts that first week back of school that we had, some districts were closed 3 days right off the bat, not including what they had prior to the holiday break. Some districts are closing even more this week because of the blowing snow and the whiteout conditions that we had Tuesday. And even some districts that were in session on Monday for Martin Luther King Day, we had some closures then. And so those days add up pretty quickly. And you know, being a parent myself, I know that the PTO juggling, if you're lucky enough to have PTO, can be a little stressful at times. And for those who don't have that luxury, we just want you to know that maybe start thinking now, potentially Friday, if you have any closing potential, is maybe think of that backup plan. What am I going to do if my student is out of school on Friday? So that's that. And I'll show you just what some of the model projections are for that time frame, early Friday. And keep in mind, the key word in this is projection. Models aren't perfect, but this model isn't the only one that is suggesting wind chills like this for Friday morning. This is our in-house model. This is the model from the company IBM, which runs the weather company, which is our software. But the European model is suggesting wind chills that are roughly this territory too. The American model has been hinting at that as well. So we're not just showing you the worst possible image that we can. These are legitimately some of the projections that we're seeing on Friday. And if I fast forward to lunchtime, you'll notice we're still in that territory of 15 to 25 below. And if we fast forward even further into the evening, we don't really improve all that much from morning to evening. And so that's why I think Friday could be a little bit more of a headache. So just want you to know about that. Let me see what we've got in the comments section here. Yeah, Joanne, the wind has been very nasty. Trevor, again, close call for school closings tomorrow. I think it's really going to depend on how the roads hold up tomorrow morning. It's really tough to say with a 1 to 3 inch type snowfall, especially when you've only got, again, I think a lot of areas may only have a ½ inch to an inch on the ground by tomorrow morning. And I think Tuscola County could actually be a ½ inch or less by that time, depending on how soon this starts. If the projections that we have for Tuscola County on the current timeline are correct, Tuscola County might not even have a ½ inch before school starts tomorrow. Let me see if I can take this out to about 7. Okay, it's about 6 in Caro, 0.6. But you can kind of see what I mean is if we can get through 7 o'clock where most of our buses are on the roads already and you've got road crews working, it's really, again, close call. I could see it being a more localized thing from district to district. Yeah, I-94, Eric brings up a good point. Not our coverage area, but travel on the west side of the state looking to be less than ideal again. Trevor, I would say if I had to pick a day that was more likely for closings, I think Friday would be more likely than tomorrow, but never say never. The people who make those decisions have decisions that far outweigh just the weather when they're making those choices, so I will leave that to them. Going to the auto show, do you think the roads will be super bad coming from the Standish area? I would say, Dawn and Tim, if you leave a little bit later, I think it'll be more manageable. For instance, if you wait until the afternoon, I don't know if you have that luxury, but if you can hold off until later in the day, I would. I think things will get better once the snow stops and we start to warm up a little bit. Mark, do you see all this weather freezing that we could possibly have some good ice? Yes, I think we'll build up plenty of ice over the next several days. And Lori says, bring your outside pets inside, of course. Do you worry about power outages with the cold Friday and Saturday? Amy, I think it depends on the wind. On Friday, if we look, Friday's winds don't look too bad, about 30 to 35. Typically, we don't see a high number of outages in that scenario. Usually the outages we see with 30 to 35 is typically lines or trees that are weak already. So I would say it's a concern, but I'm not necessarily sounding the alarm on power outages, but anybody who loses power, that's obviously with feels like temperatures like these, not ideal. So I hope that doesn't happen. Trevor, can you tell Reese you want Reese to close? I can. Kathy, we've only had one snow day thus far. That is a lucky district if you have only had one. Jade, only 1 or 2 snow days, so that's good. A lot of 3-hour delays. Yeah, delays can help out in these types of situations too. And we always talk about running out of days. A lot of times it seems like those days end up getting forgiven anyway. That's just what it seems. I'm not speaking in any official manner. But I rarely hear about students having to make up a ton of days. Any teachers can correct me on that, just kind of from memory. Yep, David, warming places, that's another reason we want to put the awareness out. So hopefully, we can get some more of those pop-up shelters. And Derek knows what I'm talking about with the PTO. I know about that too. With sickness and things like that, it can pile up quickly when you've got kids, and so that's one of the reasons I try to bring that up. The flu went around too. Nancy says, of course, that's happening this time of year. So, Charmaine, I would say Saginaw's in the 1 to 3 zone. David, snow day, again, if I had to guess, I don't think so. I think any closings tomorrow related to the snow will come down to what the road conditions are in the morning, and how well things are treated tonight and prepped for the morning, and how much snow falls before the buses get on the road. I don't anticipate a ton of snow by the time the buses are out. Again, I think a ½ inch to maybe 1.5 inches. So I think it really just depends on that. So that's kind of all I got. Here is your outlook here for the rest of the week and into early next week. And then I've got to get ready for our 10 o'clock tonight. The weekend looks pretty chilly. Actual temps both Friday and Saturday. I can never say the word digits. Single digits. Sunday in the low teens, but probably some single digits mixed in there too. And then early next week, teens and low 20s, Monday and Tuesday. All right, so that is where I will end the stream for tonight. Appreciate all of you for watching as usual. Of course, we'll kind of recap things as they happen tomorrow, and we'll obviously keep looking at Friday and Saturday too as we get closer. And of course, one of the things, with these first alert weather days too, is we can always pull them back. If we get closer to Friday and Saturday and things aren't looking quite as bad, of course, we'll let you know. And we're not going to be afraid to tell you that we don't need the alert day anymore. So kind of stay tuned on that. And I hope that's the case. I really do. I don't want to see these wind chills that are 20 to 30 below, especially for an extended period of time. It's one thing, it's bad enough to deal with it for a couple of hours in the morning. It's another thing to have it last all day. I know it's not unheard of for the state of Michigan, but it still doesn't make it any better to deal with. And I don't know if this has happened to any of you before, but last year, the first time I had my sump pump freeze. That wasn't fun. So I really hope I don't have to deal with that again. Had to manually drain that every couple of hours. Certainly not my favorite activity. So I hope those of you who have sump pumps don't have to experience that. So anyone else, feel free to chime in, but I wouldn't expect any warmth anytime soon. At least the warmth that you probably want. That's probably a better way to put it. So, all right, have a wonderful night, everybody. We will see you on Wednesday night and, of course, later this week as well. Have a good night.